a little bit different. Some different people not really working as well anymore. And that's why some new insights are needed, some new ways of doing things, and most people are actually not doing it. They're still, even in universities, teaching it the old style. So I'm going to give you some insights here. And you will probably recognize some of it from what you're doing yourself in your work, your business, etc. And you think, I've done that. Maybe I should think about doing it in a different way. So I used to be in academia. It's been almost 20 years with research, academia, all kinds of things, mainly in healthcare, but also other things. And in the latter years, it was more a lot of looking into things commercial as well. Where can you get matched funding with a university and a business locally? And one thing that came as a big surprise to me over the years was that when you try to do that, we put in some and you put in some. Just asking for £2,500 per year from a small business, and they're still struggling. That came as a big surprise to me. Now there are new ways of getting funds in, but when you do it in the old system, it's an enormous amount of work, paperwork, and the result that comes out at the end is usually very small. Yes, you can be happy if you get 100,000, but the amount of work you put in. If you do it crowdfunding ways, a new style, you can actually do it in a lot less time, with a lot less work, but you really, really, really need to know what you do. That's why most people can't do it. So I'll sort of cover a number of things. There's a big thing coming up in November, being launched in Australia regarding the crowdfunding which I'm involved in as well. I'm sort of working both in Australia and within that time zone. So I had a meeting at 5 o'clock this morning, again 10 o'clock, and then this evening, so we run a little bit sometimes. You don't know why. But first of all, things that are simple to do, simple to change, which will get some results. And that's why you might recognize, I've been doing this for a while, maybe I should start thinking about doing it in a different way. And it's something you can implement right away, or with little or no cost at all. One of the things people in their own business don't like doing is looking at themselves, asking pretty deep, boring questions, and pretty strict questions. So if you get somebody else to do it, it might be a bit better because they can see things you can't see. It's just too close. Okay? And I'm going to point out some of these things as well. And remember that people can try to run a sprint, but if you try to do that with a business, it's going to work with some campaigns, but it's going to be like up and down, up and down. Whereas most of the time it's sort of a long marathon, so you've got to plan for the longer term, not just the last or next few weeks, whatever that might be. Key thing is, many people don't get the fundamentals right. And fundamentals make it fun. When they don't get the fundamentals right, it doesn't matter that you start doing anything sophisticated, it's not going to work if you haven't got a foundation. And most people can't even see what the fundamentals are. So, whatever you learned about marketing, lead generation, I'm going to say it's probably wrong. Okay? Because you've been doing it for the past many years the same way. You might challenge me on it, that's fine. But I'll give you some examples, and I think you'll probably see, well, there's something about this here. Maybe I should start thinking differently. Okay? Now with this here, when you started in your business, did you do it because you woke up one morning, had a big dream, this is what I want to do? Did you, because your dad or mother or whoever had a business, you just go, yeah, you're following the family tree? Was it really what you wanted to do? Most people don't have plans like that. Some do, some don't. But what they tend to do is just get down and do the daily thing, and then forget about the longer term plans, etc. Unless they got to go to the bank for a loan, things like that. Of course, you got to have a plan for that. But most of the time, they just do tasks. So I do this and this is what we've always done. And then you muddle along, and then another year passes, another year, etc. And that doesn't really get you necessarily where you want to go. Okay? So you must have some big dreams. There's got to be something getting you out of bed in the morning. If it's let's just pay the bills, that's not a very good motivation. It's got to be a bit more than that. It might be taking the kids through to school or whatever. So have a little bit more than just paying the bills. The business plan comes in when you go to the bank, but it's really something that, of course, you should have in your own mind as well as your life plan. People talk about life-work balance. People talk about time management. Others say, no, it's not time management, it's about priorities. You'll have all of these buzzwords. But most people, it's just getting sort of a bit muddled up, and they sort of, oh yeah, well, some other day. And then they carry on what they've always been doing. The most important thing, there are two most important things. Number one is the mindset. Number two is taking action. If you have got the wrong mindset in business, or in sports, or wherever, it's not going to give you the results that you could in business. If you then, on top of that, don't do anything about it, then it's going to be absolutely no good. I think it was Einstein who said, the definition of insanity, that's just keep doing the same thing every time and expect a different result. It's not going to happen. So first, the mindset. And sometimes you need help with that. Some people are very disciplined. And then you have to take the action. And it's got to be purposeful. It can't be just any action, because that's where people go back to tasks. Oh, we do this and this and this. But it doesn't really pull in the right direction. The internal and external reality. What you find and your perception of the world in terms of your business is not necessarily what somebody else sees. We'll come to some examples of that. One thing that I've found is that small business people are often very much afraid of asking their customers what they really want. Oh, we know what they want. They always come and get this and this and this. Yeah, but it might be something else. I know one friend of mine who was running he was selling paints and brushes and everything. He was the chattiest person in the world. People would go to him and buy stuff which they didn't need, but just to get in a cheerful mood. When he left it to his daughter, she had it for 2 years and then it closed down. She was a totally different character. For him, they came there because it really cheered them up. Of course he knew what he was doing in terms of things and whatnot, but you've got to think about what is it that customers think about you as well. Not just, oh, I need this and I need that. It might be something else. And unless you ask, you'll not necessarily find out. And the worst is really when the internal and the external reality is clash. Because that's when you get the big surprises. Oh, but why didn't they buy from us this year? Well, there might be some reasons you don't know. So find out from them. Also, everybody learns differently. I've dealt with a lot of students who are dyslexic. They have fantastic skills with their hands, but they struggle when they have to read things. So are you forcing them to do things in a certain way because most people do it this way and therefore disadvantaging them? I know somebody who was a tiler, he was brilliant with it, he would sort of feel it, oh no, it's got to be this one, it's got to be that one. And he would put it up and it's absolutely straight. And somebody who doesn't have this problem, he can't even get it straight. So think about different learning styles. When you're in business, there's also the DISC, there's other personality types, etc. And these things matter as well when you deal with your customers, because the way you come across, or the way you think they come across in a way that wasn't intended. First of all, get the facts. Don't base it on, oh, I think this and I think that. Get the facts. It may be uncomfortable, but once you put it on paper, it becomes neutral and it's a lot easier to deal with. It's not as threatening. It's when things are sort of floating around up in the air in your head that things start getting a bit funny. So if you have ever asked yourself some of these questions, then who is answering the question? Is that yourself or is it somebody else? If you ask somebody else, they might give you a more honest answer. One big thing, in the 50s, David McClellan was studying people and performance over here, and he found out that if, and this goes today as well, if you have a group of people, you will be an average of that group of people. If you want to grow, you've got to go where it's more difficult. If it's in terms of income, you'll probably have an average of what these people earn. When it's growth, go somewhere where there are challenges. Stanley and Danko found out with the Millionaire Next Door, you might have heard about the book and the audio program. they made some very big mistakes. They're all academics. They invited all these millionaires in. They wanted to find out how they do things and why they do the way they do it. And they served them gourmet food, expensive wine, and they noticed that these people started feeling very uncomfortable because they assumed that, oh, millionaires behave like this. No, they didn't. They were much more frugal. And that came as a big surprise, so they had to revamp the whole way they were doing things. So perception is one thing, reality is quite a different one. And it's quite important that the two are in sync. Those who have a different belief system have also usually a different behavior. They do certain things in a different way. Okay? Because either they want this so bad, there are reasons why, and this could come back to the reason why this mother is working so hard is because she wants to take a daughter through university or college or whatever it might be. It's not the money that she earns from doing these extra hours of work, it's that particular thing. So they have usually some other reason why they're doing it and they're working 18 hours a day. The other thing you need is something to do with the belief systems and the emotions. If it doesn't switch you on, if it doesn't really get you up, again, forget it. Hard facts, material goods, not as good a motivator as other things that I just mentioned. Okay? It can be absolutely crucial for whether you're going to get any success or not. Okay? Because with those beliefs, it's the wrong button again. With those beliefs, you'll often find there are those actions which come. Okay? So you may think, I'm working all these hours. Well, in order to change this, I've just got to work more. Well, you'll find there aren't enough hours in the day. You've got to do things differently. But that's the typical belief. I know that when I started out in business, I was good at what I did when I came out from college, but I had no idea of how to market myself. No idea. And the best lesson I ever learned was when I tried to get an article in the local paper about what I thought was important. And then I get this call from the journalist, and in 10 minutes he gave me not only a big slap in the face, which has embarrassed me for years, but the other thing is he taught me a lesson on what they're actually interested in. I never bothered to ask. I thought, oh, they want this, so I'll do it. No, ask them, and then they'll tell you. Okay? When you have your activities, this is a key thing. Pareto's rule, 80-20 rule, you might have heard it as. In your business, probably 80% of your income is going to come from 20% of the customers or the activities, the most purposeful activities you do. It's going to be the most performing, producing activities. A lot of people, they sort of do a lot of other things as well, which don't actually add up to the results. So you've got to reevaluate, is what I'm doing taking me towards what I want to achieve? If it doesn't, why am I doing it? And that's one key thing in the marketing as well. Because a lot of people do a lot of things which really don't produce the results. A lot of the time you'll find that people say, oh, let's just throw some advertising at it. And then you get 5 new customers when you should have had 55 if you'd done it differently. So again, people tend to default to the old style, oh, let's try this because we've done it before. The reason why they keep doing it elsewhere in big companies is because they can afford it. But they still make the same mistakes. If you look at what they do in corporate departments, some of them will say, oh, yeah, well, let's just use 100,000 on this. But they don't always measure whether it was actually as good a result as they could have got. I remember that when I said to a colleague, I said, oh, did you put a number on that advert you put in that particular little table? You know, why should I? Well, you want to know where the customers are coming from, which advert did they see? Otherwise, you can't measure what you're doing. No idea. That's called tactical marketing. You do this, you do this, you do this. Which is the old style. When they have the new television after the Second World War, people put things up on there. Later on, things developed, of course. They could do it because you only had one place where you could get information about whatever products, and that was from the person who sold it. Nowadays, people go to the internet. They have all these options. And then say, oh, but you are more expensive or whatever than the other one. And they have the chance now to actually influence whether or not things are going to go one way or the other. In the past, they were all in the pocket of the person who was selling it. Nowadays, the power is in the hand of the consumers. That's why you've got to go and swing it towards education, rather than trying to go up there and say, in your face, buy this. I have a friend who's selling wine online. First thing that happens when you click on his link, this offer, that offer, it's right up in your face. And I'm sitting there looking, now where is that? I want to know about some wine, because I don't know whether this one is better than the other one. Can you not teach me something? Because I found a little link over there, there's half an article. You should have done it the other way around. But it's all in your face. I have an old school friend who just opened up a optician shop, same thing. Instagram, Pinterest, the lot, pictures, pictures, pictures. Today we're selling this, that, and the other. But you cannot tell why you should buy this one over that one. You have no idea whether it's better or whatever. And it may not even be wiser. So tactical marketing is all the stuff that you do, putting up the website, putting up an advert, etc. The strategic is really where you're educating the person along as you go along. If you have this as the buying cycle of a customer, this is where they start. This is where they start, and this is where they buy. The 1% or less than 5% certainly is down here. They buy now. It's like your eBay buy now button. They only do it if they are in desperate need of it, or if it's impulse buying. All the others are up at the other end. So you've got to take it step by step by step. Whereas in the old days, it was go from here to there in one step. Now it's, oh, there's a little information here, and then a bit here, and a bit here, and then a bit here, and then eventually they decide, because now they've assessed all the options. And that's the difference between the tactical and the strategic marketing. Okay? So it's more an educational process than it's the buy now thing. Okay, so this is the new style, it's the strategic. It takes longer, but it gets better results over time. The other thing is the whole idea is you're helping them, you're facilitating them making a decision. You're not going up in your face, this is what we need to do. No, this is facilitation. If you wake up in the middle of the night and you've got a pipe that's leaking, that's emergency. Then you'll go to the Yellow Pages, whatever, find somebody who's open 24/7, and that's the 1%. But all the others who are going to have a new kitchen, whatever, they'll want some options and they'll want some information as they go along. And that's all different. What you will see, and I've been looking at some of the local papers and magazines just in the past week just to check up on it, and it's exactly as I said. Oh, do this, do this. I don't know if this one's better than the other one as a consumer. So I always look at it from the point of the consumer. They want to find the best deal. They don't want to look like an idiot. I had one young guy who, if it was today, or if his supervisor had been there, he would probably have been sacked. I wanted to buy an Amstrad telephone cum fax machine. Now, Amstrad did not have a good reputation. They basically broke down. And he refused to sell it to me. He said, but it's, you know, it was a display unit, it's cheap. Yeah, but I won't sell it to you. So why not? Because I know you're going to come back in a month and complain about it. So I'd rather sell you one of the others, which costs £25 more. And he did me a service. So sometimes you've got to be a bit stubborn. Sometimes it may work, sometimes it doesn't. But think about what it is you're doing and why you're doing it. That's important. Okay. So if you sort of think about used car salesperson, would you think that the immediate picture that comes up is somebody who's got a good reputation? Or is it somebody you trust? Or is it somebody you've dealt with before and you know you trust? I had a friend who was in college and he felt obliged to buy from his father's friend's son, who was fixing up all the cars. It was the worst thing he ever did. then it was the suspension that went, then it was the carburetor, then it was the petrol tank. He could have had a car for a year on exchange rates and had a new car and lost virtually nothing on it. But he didn't want to be found dead in a Skoda. That's why he didn't do it. What he did was pay through the nose on repairs on the old one instead, just because he felt obliged. So there's no doubt that deep inside he probably felt a bit stupid. Okay? And that's not the situation you want to put the customers in. Make them or help them facilitate. I had an experience in the charity shop locally where this guy comes in, I'm standing with the back to the counter, and this guy comes in who's probably in his late 20s. First thing he asks, he goes past all the things on the shelves. First thing he asks this guy behind the counter is, what's your refund policy? And this guy is completely stuck. He said, what do you mean refund policy? We're a charity. We get things second hand. It's as you see it. No, what's your refund policy? It tells you something about the mindset of this person. One of the reasons why they don't take electrical things like this, because they've got to pay about £80 to get it checked that it works, and therefore sell it afterwards. So it's expensive for them. But this guy was all focused on the refund. And that sometimes is also people's mentality in business. They focus on the wrong thing. As a business owner, you can't just be the owner and not be involved in other things. Marketing is one of them. If you think of business as a three-legged stool, you've got finance, you've got the core activity, and then you've got marketing. If any one of those is missing, the stool falls over. And I know good colleagues, they do not want to have anything with anything other than the core activity to do. And that's why sometimes if somebody like the receptionist is sick, they have a problem because they don't even know where the files are. They can hardly send an email. So you need to have an idea, even if it's fairly rudimentary, about everything in your business, and then later on you can take some of these things and you can delegate them to somebody else. Always do it, of course, by adding value, the honesty and integrity. Again, if it's up your face by this, it doesn't sound very well. It doesn't come across well. That's again where inside reality you may think you have the greatest thing since sliced bread, but the customers don't necessarily think so. They're just very polite and say this and that, and they're fine. And that gives you a false reality. It's more important that you go out and actually ask them a few questions. The one who asks the questions is often in control. You don't have to have all the answers, but it would be a good idea to at least ask what the customers think. So the true inside reality is not always what's projected outside, and you can't always put it in words in your advertising or whatever, what you really think. So there's this incongruency between what's going on inside and outside. So at the end of the day, I looked at it, and last week there was every 2 weeks, people interviewed. It's the same question, so it's a little bit unfair. But there was this person who was asked, so why are you so good? Oh, we are professional. Well, if you are a professional, we would expect you to be professional. In other words, there's no difference between you and all the others. So how am I supposed to know why you're so good? Is it because you've got 30 years experience? When in fact somebody who's got 1 year experience is doing a better job because you're sleeping on the laws. So being professional, there are certain things you would expect. Also think about, it's like the mousetrap example I just pointed out here. What happens if you develop the best mousetrap in the world? Nobody else has it. You're going to sell thousands. There's only one problem. There aren't any mice around. So you're not going to use it. Sell it. Nobody's going to buy it. Okay? I have got people I know of who have developed very good products, unique, but they created a bottleneck in their business because everything has to be done manually. There's no way of scaling it up. So you couldn't even buy it on the internet because you have to go and measure something. And it's bespoke to that particular person. You can't do it with children because they grow too fast, and therefore it would be too expensive. On the internet, you've got 8 to 10 seconds to get somebody's attention. Females, 8 seconds, males 10 seconds. After that, if they don't see what they like on it, they'll be off. Hits, you've probably heard about on a website, or we have 30,000 hits. It's like people coming to your shop window, standing outside, looking at it, what you have inside, and then they bugger off. Okay? What is important is that they come in and they buy something. So in other words, conversion. You can have all the traffic in the world, but if it doesn't convert into some sales, it's not going to help you. Okay? So the person I thought, he said, oh, we've got 50,000 hits. He said, yes. Do you know what hits stands for? How idiots track success. Because these are window lookers. How many of these became customers or students or whatever? Oh, I don't know. Well, then you haven't got anything but people who look at windows from outside. Best service, most convenient, largest in the States. This is from the American. Gets the job done right the first time. Lowest price, that's what often small businesses tend to default to, and that's going to really hit their margins. Okay? This one is particularly useful. You see it all the time with cake factories and others. Oh, we've been baking cakes since 1895. I don't care. If they're not good, if they don't do what I want, that experience, I don't care if it was last year or 1895 or 1940. So what they do is focus on features instead of benefits. So always, what's the benefit to the customer? Well, I hope so. Is one way you can evaluate. We're professional. Yes, I would hope so. That's why I come here, to get that service. If you weren't, why would I be here? In other words, you should be professional, so is the next one. There's no difference between you, so the only thing I can default to is the price. Consulting company, do you think these things would be reasonable thing for a consultant to say? Do you hear it all the time? Yes, you do. We're professional, we're the best, we've got 30 years experience, etc. But it doesn't mean that we necessarily do a good job of it. So ask strict questions when you hire somebody. Okay? So again, people may think inside that we are the best, and they may well be. But what happens if you are the best and you don't ever tell anybody about it? Then there will be nobody looking for it. Okay? So there are various ways that you can do that, and that's part of it in your marketing. Stop thinking, who else can do this? If you use these, just here, if you use some of these, well, who else can say what you do? And there's no difference when they do that between their businesses. Again, the only thing you've got left is the price difference, because one doesn't seem to be better than the other. And it's difficult in the beginning if you've got no gold standard to work to compare it. You've got to have something, a little bit of knowledge. When you do a campaign in your own business, there are simple things you can do, there are cheap things you can do, and there are expensive things to do. But it's a question about whether or not you know which ones to do. We had a student where she had never baked a cake before, chocolate cake. It became one big sticky mess. I said, what on earth is this? This is chocolate cake? No. Well, did you